Ooh, we're live.
Hold on, I'm just about to go on Instagram. It just takes a little bit of a delay because it has to
Okay.
connect. But we're live on YouTube right now. Okay. And we are now live on Instagram. Okay.
Love it. We made it.
We made it by the
Barely again.
honestly.
It's me. It's me. Um, you know, in the breakup world of, it's not you, it's me. It's always me. Really.
I mean, for the lives maybe, but I wouldn't say it's you, on all fronts.
Right.
Yeah.
It's something. It's been a day, I have this toxic trait of thinking that I can book 70 things back to back. Like, you guys, if you knew the amount of times that I've had to reach out to Dr. Laura and be like, hey, did we say this time? Because I have a fraction of a second to leave the class that I'm teaching with a bunch of postpartum moms. And I'm gonna be live on YouTube. Like today, she was like 2:30 good, and I was like, "Oh, I teach a class 1:30 to 2:30."
Yeah.
So, like, could that be good? Question mark.
Ashley's toxic
Unclear.
trait is that she thinks that she can teleport.
Like, literally. And it's been a weird day. I've had a lot of things on my to-do list. It's been very productive. Like, how many people here have like dropped their kid off to camp and have been like done grocery shopping at like 8:45? Like, that's been my day, and I've lost a contact, so I'm like one-eyed Joe over here. It's a situation.
You know what, though? Good for
But
you to have the grocery shopping done early in the morning. And I've lost a contact before. And if it is my left one, game over.
game over.
Yeah.
It is my left one. It is the left one. But you know what? We're fine, and it's not game over. And I even went to the gym today, and we're gonna circle back to that because Dr. Laura and I, if you've been listening to this podcast, you know that we frequently fire off messages to one another by like 7 a.m. And one of my confessions was that I had a really bad exercise week last week, and
Mhm.
and we're going to tie into what that looks like from like patient perspective, and maybe some practical things we can like do about that.
Yeah. We'll start with this article that I pulled up, updated June 25th. And it says physical inactivity is a silent threat as countries, including Canada, are off track. And the article goes on to say that a growing number of people in Canada and globally are physically inactive. And the new study calls it a silent threat that needs greater attention. This study showed that 31.3% of the global adult population, or 1.8 billion people, did not meet the WHO's recommended level of physical activity in 2022.
If I'm going to be honest, I think that sounds low compared
Yeah.
to what I see in in my practice. Like, I genuinely, I bet you less than probably 50% of my patient population is meeting those guidelines. So I'm shocked to hear that it's that low, to be honest.
Yeah, and I see on, well, again, it's like, how did they do the study? Who did they survey,
Right,
right? Like,
right.
it's not good, really.
No.
We're living sedentary lifestyles, and I actually had a conversation with a patient today. She's relatively healthy. It's actually interesting because I see patients that are struggling with maybe perimenopause or other concerns. Maybe they're like, I have hot flashes, I'm not sleeping well, all because of perimenopause, right? And so these patients see me, and then I'll be like, okay, we're going to do, this little thing, and we're going to put them on like a touch of hormones. And then they see me and they're like, everything's better. I love you so much. Like, I've lost 10 pounds. I'm sleeping. And they're like, it's all because of you. And I say to them, no, it's actually because
Not really.
you it's
Yeah.
because you are eating well and you're exercising. And the only thing I have to do is like that minor shift, that hormone that you were, lacking because you're in perimenopause. Like, that's what we needed. And because you already cleaned up the rest of the situation, it made my job a lot easier to do. And so people don't realize the impact of physical inactivity or a sedentary life. And I'm not going to say I'm a saint. Like, over the past month, I've barely lifted anything, other than my children. Now, having said that, I walk every single day, but I haven't strength trained in over a month.
Totally. And I think that's what's so valuable about this, right? Because I I think it's sometimes one of the things that helps us in practice is that relatability, right? I genuinely hope people, watch our videos and listen to our podcasts and be like, these are not fitness influencers. You know what I mean? These
I
are,
mean, if you were confused about me
yeah,
being a
if
fitness
you were
influencer.
confused, I hope that this clarifies things, right? But genuinely, and this is, I think you can look at this from two different perspectives. Like, we're not fitness influencers, and we're in the thick of having little kids and being at their beck and call. But at the same point in time, I also use that in the reverse too. Like, I tell people, like, I understand how hard this is. I genuinely do. People that have been following on my social media for a period of time, like, you'll see videos of my son in the gym with me.
Yeah.
And it's not because that's the more convenient way for me to work out. It's because I'm a single mom and there's nowhere else to put him. That doesn't result in a CAS call. You know what I mean? So, like,
Yeah.
bro, I get it, but, like, facts is we have to do better. Interestingly too is I did my business partner and I Deneen Stevenson, who I run a lot of my perinatal and women's health programs with, like my exercise based programs. We've done a ton of market research in the last month. Sitting down, chatting with people that we've worked with before, people that we haven't, email marketing, polls on social media, like, you name it. And there was two major barriers that came up, and one, I think, is not an excuse, but I think we have some decisions to make. So one was for sure childcare. Childcare is really hard and is an absolute barrier with becoming physically active, because there's nowhere that you can really put your kids.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a real problem. And access to childcare in our region, we're in Simcoe County, is, like, really crazy. There's long wait lists, so that's a very real barrier. But the number one barrier that came in through our email marketing was unable to carve out the time for exercise.
Mm-hmm.
And I've got news for you, but there's no like magic trick for that. And what I would pose to you on the other end of things is, have you ever once had somebody sit down in your office and be like, Dr. Laura, I just can't carve out the time to binge watch my favorite show. I just can't carve out the time to have that beer on a Friday night.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
can carve out the time.
Yeah.
You totally
And
can. And
it,
that's a decision, and that's an intentional choice.
yeah. And on the flip side of that, I've actually found, evenings where I feel like I want that glass of wine. If I actually do like a 30-minute stretch or yoga flow, I'm over it.
Which is
Like,
great.
I don't want the drink by the end of it. And what's interesting with the physical activity, this research study, is actually they found that women were actually they found that high income countries had a greater prevalence of physical inactivity when they compared it with low income countries, and the highest level of inactivity were actually in the middle income classification. And there were multiple factors to this. But what's interesting
Interesting.
what's also interesting to this is that people are saying, when they talk through all the ideas or all the reasons why, some people are citing that cost is a reason. But why are the higher income countries the ones that are less active? Because I think we associate the fact that if we move, it has to be at a boutique gym space, and although it can be,
Right.
it doesn't have to
Doesn't
be.
have to be.
So
Absolutely
there's a
not.
lot of, and also another thing that's interesting is women are moving less than men, which I have a bias because I pretty much only treat women, and you as well. We have a high population of
Yeah.
women in our practices, so it's hard to say, but that doesn't shock me.
No, me neither.
The other thing is, and I was
From my
actually
experience,
no, go ahead. We're a little bit, we're on a delay here, guys. So sorry.
from my oh yeah, sorry. From my experience working with men, I find that they're different in that a lot of the men that I work with, they either they're more likely to count their like yard work, day-to-day tasks as their physical activity, or they play sports, right? That's what I find. They're like, oh, like, I play hockey once a week, and I'm like, oh, okay, but like, what about some intentional?
Okay, is Ashley gone? Are we frozen? I don't know. Question mark. If you're on Instagram, can you hear me? Is Ashley frozen? Two questions. I'll wait here for Ashley to reconnect. Ashley. Okay. Yeah, so okay. It's just Ashley. It's an Ashley problem then. Okay. So essentially looking at the reasons why we move and why we don't. And something interesting, I'll wait till Ashley reconnects here and I'm just going to talk about a couple things I was going to bring up. But so essentially when we look at movement, it doesn't have to be something fancy, right? We know that lower income countries are actually the ones that are moving more than the higher income countries. So we need to take that into account. We don't have to do fancy things. We can do fancy things, but we don't essentially have to do that. And so one of the conversations I had, actually a couple conversations that I can kind of piece together. Number one is the 7-minute workout. If you've never heard of the 7-minute workout, this is such a key tool that you can use. It is a free body weight workout that you can find on YouTube. And essentially what it is it's like a, how do I describe it? It's essentially like a picture. It's like a moving person, and they'll be like squats is your first one. So it'll do squats, it'll do a countdown timer, and then it'll say push-ups, and you do the same thing, and then it'll say wall sits. It's such an easy tool, and we know that there is evidence in doing what's called, oh, I think Ashley's back.
Ashley's back. Her phone overheated. I guess this is a con of it being 400 degrees today.
Okay. Well, I'm going to finish telling everybody about the 7-minute workout, and then you can come back to men and exercising.
Perfect.
So essentially the 7-minute workout is a resource. It's a tool you can find on YouTube for free, and it helps with what I like to refer to as movement snacking. So you can actually, if you're working from home, you can actually take those pieces of, time in between your calls, and you could do that squat series, or you can do those push-ups or that wall sit. You really need little to no space and little to no time. So I think that's a really good way we can incorporate movement in, specifically when we have such sedentary jobs. But Ashley, I had to fill the void, so keep on keeping on.
Perfect. I love that. And kind of building off of that for 1 second before we detour again. And something I shared with Dr. Laura this morning, I said I put it in my calendar. Like I put it in as seriously as I put in a meeting, right? From this time to time. And I even put the human I was being coached by today. So I was like, workout 9:30 to 10:30 with Holly LePage. Like this is we're doing, this is a meeting, right? And I think when we're super intentional with our time like that, and we book it in and we show other people and we block it off our calendar from other things, I think that that's a really helpful strategy as well. And what I was saying before my phone blew up was that I find that a lot of men are more likely to be involved in recreational sports and count that as their intentional activity, right? And when we look at a lot of these sports, and I know because I play them too, right? They're very shifty. There tends to be like, a lot of guys playing. There's not a whole lot necessarily of playing time. There's a lot of beers after the fact. So when we look at like actual playing time, and again, it's very different and it's great. I think it's great that we're playing sports and we're involved in things that like socially, emotionally, mentally kind of lift us up, but it's really not the same as intentional strength training, right? Versus I find that the women I work with are actually a lot more intentional with their strength training when they do it, when they commit to it, right? So I'm not saying that that's all men, and that's certainly not all women, but those are like the patterns I kind of notice in my practice.
Yeah, totally. I would totally agree. And I think that we have to, I think looking at movement, also, I'm sure Ashley would agree that when, especially with women, we know that frailty actually goes up as we age. And so some of the markers of overall health really have nothing to do with, the last 10 pounds that you lost, but really
Correct.
like your ability to like do a push up or to pull yourself up, or to do a squat, because we need to do that when you get off of the toilet, for
Correct.
example.
Yep, for
So
sure.
those functional movements are really important, but really, there's really no excuse. There's no trick. There's no like special thing. It's literally just doing it. It's deciding to do it and do it. And the one thing that I will say, again, we're not fitness influencers. Like, you guys must be shocked, but we're just not. So for me, I find that I struggle. I get into a lot of patterns, hence why I have a walking pad. I do a lot of friggin' walking, but I get into a pattern where I won't strength train for a while and then I just stop doing it. I fall out of the habit. I stop doing it and I have to force myself to do it. And I'll say, never once have I regretted it after I've done it. And I think that's something people could probably agree.
Yeah, no, I've never regretted any workout I've ever done in my life, right? And
Yeah.
I don't think you will either. And like Dr. Laura said, I think that there really is no, like, when it comes to carving out the time, we're respectfully, we're all busy, right? We all have things to do. And there's more and more research coming out about like productivity studies with being physically active, right? So I want you to think of it that way. It's like you're taking some time away from this to like buy more time and productivity throughout your day, right? But there's no quick fix. There's nobody else out there, generally speaking, that has all of this extra time that you don't. And I know it sounds a little like tough lovey, but like it just kind of is,
Yeah.
you
Yep.
have to make that choice.
When you make the choice that you bring Bennett to the gym with you, not everyone wants to make that choice, and I'm sure you don't.
No, I don't want to make that choice either. Love them, but would love an hour to just do my own workout, right?
Yeah.
But it's not an all or nothing thing, and an imperfect workout is so much better than no workout at all.
Yep. Yep. Totally. Okay. Shifting gears. This is something that I was talking about a little bit this week, and it's about tampons having toxic levels of lead and arsenic.
Ooh, big switch up. Okay. This is scary. I wear tampons.
Do
Let's
you?
go.
No.
Yes, I
Did you
do.
see my
I
post?
do. Because you know what? Let's circle back to a previous episode. Because unlike Dr. Laura Pfeiffer, I will go into a goddamn outhouse, right? So, like, where am I cleaning off the cup or whatever? Like,
Okay.
sometimes I'm teaching exercise in a park.
I'm going to tell you the benefit. So I personally have used the Nixit menstrual disc for about 2.5 years now. Prior to, I was hardcore tampons. I had a really unfortunate incident with a Diva Cup that I'm not going to go into detail with right now. But let's just say it ended up at a walk-in clinic with forceps, and that just wasn't like the
You know
ideal
what? I
scenario.
think that says. I
Oh,
think that
somebody.
paints the entire picture. I think you just told the story. In fact.
Okay, great, great. I love that. So essentially I moved on to the menstrual disc, and the benefit of the disc is you actually can keep it in for 12 hours and you don't need to be changing it in porta potties,
Oh,
outhouses.
okay.
Right. So that one of the things I really like about it is you can keep it in for 12 hours. So I can change it in the like clean it in the morning, put it in, go about my whole entire day and not worry about it till bedtime.
Wow.
So that's the biggest thing with the disc. It does, I will be honest, it takes a few months of like working with it because there is a little bit of a technique to putting it in. There is a little bit of leakage. So I usually tell patients, be patient, give it a few months. And the only reason you give it a few months is because you only get your period once a month, right? So give it a few months and then you will appreciate it. So that's just the first thing. But this study is actually very concerning because the study was published in the journal Environmental International, and it found that all 30 tampons tested from 14 different brands, including organic, contained lead, with some showing concerning levels of other toxic metals like
Oh my
arsenic.
God, that's actually wild.
Yeah. The thing that's really scary about this is that when we look at the state, like the quote unquote lowest acceptable level of some of these things, lead has none. Lead has no acceptable
No,
levels.
I would not think so. There's no amount of lead that we should munch on.
The other thing is that when you put a tampon in the vaginal canal, it has extreme absorptive capabilities in there. And so not only are you having something that has concentrations of lead and arsenic, but it's being absorbed in a higher level if you're inserting it like a suppository.
That's so terrifying, actually.
And the other thing is you would assume that it was the organic tampons would actually be better.
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't know why else anybody's buying organic tampons, to be honest. I would presume that that's kind of the general assumption, right? That there's like less stuff in there that we don't want to have in that region.
Yeah, and they're like so annoying to put in. I don't know if you've ever used one like of the OB tampons, but like, oh my God.
Are they the ones that we're all doing this learning together, guys, live on
Mhm.
YouTube? Are they the ones that don't have the applicator? Like they're
Yes.
just oh, I've
Yes.
totally used those before.
Yeah. Well, they have arsenic. So
So stop.
but okay, but in all seriousness, it's actually when we think about, lifespan, life expectancy being longer, and we look at all of the women who are having, a period every single month throughout their lifetime, and then we look at the toxic chemicals that are in the tampons that we use for multiple days of that month. And
That's a
then we
lot of
layer on the
exposure.
idea that people are having more and more fertility challenges and hormonal issues and period problems and worsened perimenopause. It makes you think.
Oh, it's probably not nothing.
Yeah. So the other thing is people were wondering, how does it get in there? So from the research, I'm looking at the Global News article right now, but when I had looked at the initial research, I looked at the actual study, and what it had said essentially is that the cotton is absorbing it from the environment. So like
Okay, and then
in the soil and stuff.
that's crazy because you would
Mhm.
think because it's like sealed in there, no, like, but I guess it's sealed in like a plastic covering. So whatever that
No,
plastic has
no,
then been.
actually, the cotton, like that, the tampon is cotton, and the cotton like grows.
When it's not attached to a plant anymore. Come on.
No, like when it's a plant,
Yeah.
it's absorbing the heavy metals from the
Oh, when it's
soil.
as it's growing as a crop.
Yes.
Okay, I thought we meant like in the packaging, like it's absorbing stuff in there. I'm
No.
like, but how? I feel
No,
like
no,
something's leaking. Oh
like
no,
from the
this makes
initial
a lot of
environment.
sense. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes a
So we're
lot of
having
sense.
more and more heavy metals in our environment, and apparently
Right.
cotton is specifically vulnerable to absorbing a lot of these. And the other thing I thought of is, what about all the organic cotton clothing that people are buying, also thinking that it's better?
Right. What's the main constituent of like baby wipes and stuff like that too? Like where does this I feel like this is taking me down a rabbit hole.
I know. And did you see there was actually a class action lawsuit for the Costco baby wipes?
I still have those in my cupboard.
I
I
buy
have them.
those.
Ah,
Yeah, and the class
bad.
action lawsuit is because there was PFAS, so another endocrine disrupting chemical in their wipes when they claim to not have any. So it becomes overwhelming when you start to look at the environmental piece of
Yeah,
hormonal health and cancer and reproductive health and all these pieces, because there's a lot of stuff that's outside of our control. But what
totally.
is inside our control is
Don't
the
use tampons.
is yeah. So I would be switching to a menstrual cup. If you guys get a Nixit, you can use the code Dr. Laura ND and get 15% off. So that's just like a side note.
Love that for me.
But the Nixit is the best investment I ever made. And I know lots of people who do their Diva Cup love it. I've also had some people do the Pixie Cup and love it, or the Pixie Disc. The difference really between the cup and the disc is that the cup requires suction. And so to like get it in and get it out with the disc, I will say one of the benefits is that the way that it sits, so first of all, it doesn't need suction, so that when you put it in, you don't have to worry about like twisting it and sealing it.
Right.
Because the disc, or sorry, because the cup has suction, it's less likely to leak. But sometimes if you can't get that seal properly, you're kind of screwed. With the disc, which is what I use, it's like shaped like a big circle. Essentially, it sits on top of your pubic bone. And so when you go to the bathroom and you bear down, it actually will self empty. It like tips open and will empty. And then you can just like tuck it back up after. So people who
Sounds
are
like
like,
a weird science experiment, but I'm kind of excited.
so what I would recommend people do, because the Nixit is like $60. So you're like, maybe I don't want to do that right away. What I did is I actually bought Tampax makes they're called flex discs. And so you can actually buy a pack of 12. They're not cheap, but it's good to have. And I like to have them, so they're disposable discs, but I like to have them because if I'm like on the go somewhere and I wasn't expecting to get my period and I didn't bring my disc, I could at least have a flex disc. And so you wear those for 12 hours as well, but they're disposable after those 12 hours. And it's just like a silicone ring with like a baggy kind of thing. So same device, but like it's not silicone, right? But it does help you get used to the actual contraption.
Right.
So
And putting
that
it in,
you can,
taking it out, that kind of
yeah,
thing.
putting it in, taking it out. And what I did like is a lot of people, I find their hesitation with the disc is because there's no like string contraption on it. And so they get freaked out about being able to get it out. And I'll tell you guys for free, it won't go up your cervix. There's like literally nowhere for it to go. It's not going to go up your cervix unless for some weird reason your cervix gets large enough for it to get in there. Which,
Well,
like, if your cervix,
I was gonna say, if you look at a non-dilated cervix, it's not anatomically set up for things to just shoot up there. Like,
no, things aren't supposed to just like casually go
no,
through.
no, it's not really
So
how the works.
you won't lose it. The only reason that people get freaked out because of all the stories we hear about IUDs like migrating, that's not because a hole opens. That's because it literally embeds itself in your tissue and then goes through to the other side of the
Right,
tissue.
right. That's very different.
That's a little bit different. That's like a problem, but it's not the
But
same problem.
weirdly, I don't think people are as concerned about that. Like when
No.
you know what I mean? I'm like, there's like, okay, it moved. I'm like, what do you mean? Like,
Yeah.
I think I'd
Yeah.
rather move, you know?
Yeah. So you will be able to get it out, but if you bear down, you can get it out. But what I was going to say with the flex disc, it's nice because the rim is a really hard, like it's like a silicone, but I feel like it's harder than normal silicone. And so when you pinch it, I just find it's easier to grab. So like if you're just starting out, it's a good starting pathway. If you're just like new to discs, it's a good place to start.
Well, I feel like I've learned a lot today that I did not know.
Yeah, I think that it's really important that we understand that. I think we've always known that tampons have some chemicals in them that aren't
Yeah.
great. But here's the explanation. It's actually in this article. How does the metal get in the tampons? One of them is that cotton, for example, is a pretty decent accumulator of metals. So it could absorb metals that can be naturally present from soil, or water might absorb metals from fertilizer. So that's one way that some metals could get into some of these
Right.
products. Also, if it happens that the raw material like cotton is grown near a pollution source, then some of the metals from the
Like a
pollution source.
poor setup. Like, I don't know who would have thought growing anything near a pollution source was a good idea. I'm assuming it's done intentionally.
I'm assuming that a man probably set it up, not having to utilize the cotton in his nether regions at any point in time.
You're probably right.
Yeah. He's like, this seems like a good spot.
Right. Like, it's cotton. Nobody's eating it. We're good.
It doesn't matter if it's going in people's vaginas. We'll deal with that later.
Right. Right.
And we are dealing with that later. So,
We are.
yeah. And so their conclusion in this article, so it says time to throw away tampons question mark. I would answer that with like a hard yes, but
Like,
their conclusion is there's no need to panic and throw out your tampons, but this finding highlights the importance of ongoing research in women's health products.
So Dr. Laura is saying, please panic and throw out your tampons.
For sure, panic and throw out your tampons. Option 1, panic and throw out your tampons. Option 2, continue to be a part of the study over the next 20 years and see what happens.
That's not a great option.
I'm going to go with option 1.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's a good idea.
I keep tampons as like an emergency situation in my car. Have I
Right.
had to use one in 2.5 years? Not one time. Not one time.
That's good to know.
Yeah. So I would say try it. If you've had a bad experience with the with any sort of cup, try a disc. If you want to try the Flex disc, they're disposable. You can get them on Amazon. You can get them at most grocery stores. So I want you guys to leave with that. And I also want everybody to leave with the intention of setting up a movement plan, a movement strategy for themselves going forward.
I think that is the best plan of all time. And if you need help, this is what we do for a living.
Might
So
know someone.
yeah,
Wouldn't be me. Wouldn't be
I
me. It would be
it,
her.
yeah, yeah. Reach out.
So
We'll help.
cool. All right.
Cool, cool.
We actually have a new episode on the podcast that went up today. This episode will go up next Monday. Hopefully, you guys like the live format because we like it. It's
We
fun.
do too. And most of the time, I don't cut out.
Yeah, most of the time we have good
Yeah,
connection.
most of the time.
All right. Well, hope everybody has a good day. Stay dry. Hopefully, it doesn't rain again.
Bye.
Bye.